What is up, everyone? Zach Reger with SBD. The NFL draft is tomorrow. We are almost there. And joining me is Matt McEwan, also from Sports Betting Dime. He's known for every single year NFL mock draft based off the odds, alternates kind of throughout. Because if you haven't bet on the NFL draft yet, there's one main thing to know, and that is that these odds change quickly. Like you always hear in sports betting, Matt, you want to get the best number, you want to get out in front of it. And I feel like the NFL draft just multiplies that by like 10,000 maybe. You got to get that number. These odds move quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me here, Zach. Pleasure to be here with you. Totally agree. I mean, there's so much talk about closing line value in just day-to-day bets, betting MLB and NBA, whatever pro leagues. It's crazy with the NFL draft because I mean, one minute you might think you have fantastic closing line value, and then all of a sudden the Jaguars say, "Oh no, we might draft Ashton Jeanty," and all of a sudden you're sitting on a terrible bet. It's the Wild West here. It's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of advantages for the folks who are able to really follow these lines. Monitor these odds every single day. Stay on top of these rumors and see how they're affecting the lines. There's a lot of value to be found here. But I mean, hey, this is one of those call it a fringe sporting event here where there are some people with some insider info. We do not have that, so you've got to understand that. You've got to understand there's someone out there that knows more than you here. You might think you get a great line, like I said. It might turn out to not be a great one. That is just the nature of betting the NFL draft.
I'm glad you brought up Ashton Jeanty because I thought heading into this draft, top like 5, 6 seemed pretty set in stone. I still think the top 4 is pretty set unless there's a trade or something crazy. But it seems like it's Ward, Hunter, Carter, Will Campbell, and now Ashton Jeanty at 5, maybe. Like, do you buy into that? Do you think it's kind of just a smokescreen as we're getting closer? That's also the fun thing to balance here.
So if I were a Jaguars fan, I would hope this is a smokescreen. Um, and look, I say that knowing Ashton Genty's a fantastic player, probably going to have a very nice NFL career. And we saw what Liam Cohen did last year with another rookie running back, Bucky Irving. So by no means am I saying, hey, this is a bad, terrible pick. Yeah, I'm not saying he wouldn't have success in Jacksonville. What I am saying is I just don't see how this roster could prioritize selecting running back at 5. The holes they have. I mean, last year Trevor Lawrence got so beat up. I think you're still in. I think they're still invested in Lawrence as their franchise quarterback, and if so, let's get this guy some protection. I don't think simply bringing in Liam Cohen and a bit of a quick passing game offense is the only answer. It's a good help, but they need more help. Their defense stinks. They need help there. The Mason Graham pick just made a lot of sense here. So I kind of think this is one of those smoke screens. I think they're going to try to, they know the Raiders right behind them are all over Jeanty. And I think they're just playing this up, see if they can get anything from the Raiders to move back one spot and still get the guy they actually want.
Or
But
even to go past that, I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but the Bears at 10, they could maybe move up to 5 also. That's been at least talked about. So if he's there at 5, yeah, I agree with you, though. They have way too many holes to just go for, I was going to say settle for Jeanty, which seems crazy to say because of how good he is, but they need help. Even a receiver would make more sense, I think, than a running back.
yeah, it's not like anyone outside of Brian Thomas played overly well last year. I mean, I think coming into this year, Parker Washington might actually be their second best receiver. I
He
mean,
wasn't too bad last year.
Gabe
Like,
Davis was
it's
horrific.
okay.
You lose Engram, so yeah, I could see that too. But for I'm a big believer in you win football games in the trenches, and I think that's where they need to go. But we'll see. Jeanty now, yeah, the odds-on favorite to be the 5th overall pick. The Jaguars are now favored to be the team who picks Jeanty, which was not the case yesterday. We'll see. We'll see how things continue to move ahead of Thursday night.
Just another prime example of these odds move quickly. And let's jump into our best bets before I get into my first one. I'll give yet another example. I had on Sunday Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas, under 18.5 for his draft position. It was plus 145, and that just did not seem right to me. There are so many teams that could use a corner before 18. Starting at 11, the 49ers could go there. The Cowboys, they'll probably go offense, but they could use a corner. Dolphins, Cardinals, Seahawks at 18. And now just we're recording Wednesday. Sunday to Wednesday, it's just slowly been moving. And now it's down to minus 240. So that's why I'm not giving this pick out, but just another example. And I mean, I even saw a rumor today. Don't really believe this, but someone said he could go as high as 7 to the Jets, which is absurd because that means he'd go above Will Johnson. And I don't necessarily see that, but it's fun. I love the NFL draft. So we talked about receivers a little bit earlier. I'm going to start off with a plus 200 best bet. I'm going to go Matthew Golden, first wide receiver taken. I feel like the general vibe of Ted McMillan, it's split. You listen to some teams, some guys, some reports. Slam dunk number 1 pick. You see the clips on social media. He's a baller. He can catch anything, big body, can play all over the field. But then you have Matthew Golden, who's can also play all over the field. Speedster. Mel Kiper has him as his number 1 receiver. You can take with that what you will. That's just more to show that people are split on these wide receivers. And I could see some receivers just slipping and falling with a lot of just other positions taking priority in this draft. And I kind of like how he fits in with CeeDee Lamb in Dallas at 12 more than Ted McMillan. And you have Jerry Jones, Texas. Just something makes sense there. And when you have 2 wide receivers that it's kind of a toss-up, I'm going to take the one 10 times out of 10 that's plus 200 versus minus whatever Ted McMillan is. So I'm going to take a little bit of a leap, and I'm going to go Matthew Golden, first receiver taken.
So Zach and I disagree a little bit here. You know what? Maybe not, though. I should say it's not a conclusion that we disagree. But one of my favorite bets right now, actually, is Matthew Golden over 17.5 for his draft position. So he could still be the first wide receiver taken at 18, 19, 20. But I think Tet is going to be number 1. And looking at the board, I mean, you just rattled off a bunch of teams there in the mid-teens that are needy for a corner. A lot of those teams were needy for offensive linemen. A lot of them are needy for edge rushers. I think there's a lot of teams that pick before in basically the first half, in the first 17 picks of this draft, that do not, like, wide receiver is not a priority for them. And I also think this year's wide receiver class is very interesting. We had last year's class that had, these kind of 3 studs at the top. You had some decent depth in that draft. And I feel we haven't heard too much about this year's receiver class. It's like you said, it's Tet, it's Golden, it's Abuka. Luther Burden was a hot name a year ago or so.
Yeah.
He's kind of fallen off now too, but I'm very interested to see how teams are going to prioritize this position in this draft. And based off what else is available, I believe there's kind of this upper tier of offensive linemen that I think teams are going to be desperate to get one of those players. And I think you can say the same thing about edge rushers. I think there's an upper tier about 4 to 5 offensive linemen and, maybe 5 to 6-ish edge rushers here, that if you miss out on one of them, I think it's a pretty big step down to the next tier. So I think you're going to have teams in the first half of the draft really desperate to get their hands on those players. And for that reason, Golden over 17.5 at plus 130, I think is a really good value bet.
I do like it. I can see a world where wide receivers slip here because everyone, it seems like, is all over. They have their different thoughts, different views on them. And it's not like the best class we've seen, but it is a pretty deep class, I feel like. Like heading second, third round, I could see a lot of teams waiting for these day 2, day 3 picks. because there have even been mocks where Ibuka, Luther Burden, who was before the season a top 10 pick, I could see them kind of falling out of the first round or going very late first round. So I like that. I also I agree with you completely. Edge and D line, there are a lot of good players here. And so I'm going to bet, going into my next best bet, 49ers to pick an edge or D lineman with their first pick at plus 125. They kind of need help in a few different places, but they really need help in the trenches, especially on the defensive side. And as I just said, there are a lot of really good edge rushers, D linemen in this draft. And you can only fit so many in the top 10. The 49ers picking at 11. Mason Graham, we talked about him, who seemed like yesterday, bona fide top 5 pick. Now we could see him fall a little bit. I don't know if he falls to 11. I think that would be absurd. But he is no longer at DraftKings the favorite to be any of the top 10 picks. He's second, third, fourth down. I don't think he falls out of the top 10, but that's at least worth noting. And then Walter Nolan, Michael Williams, he should go before 11. Shamar Stewart could go a little bit higher. There's just enough guys that they should be able to pick. Someone should fall to them, or maybe even two guys. So I like plus 125 is the favorite for a reason for them to pick that position. So that's what I'm going with.
I think that's a really intriguing one too. I actually feel one of the most underrated storylines so far of this offseason has been Robert Saleh returning to San
Yep.
Francisco as their defensive coordinator. And his defense thrives on, really good front. He I know he did in New York. He had a really good corner in Sauce Gardner there for a couple of years, but I don't believe his defense prioritizes any position more so than the trenches. He wants to stop the run and he wants to rush the passer without having to blitz too much, right? I think adding someone across from Bosa would be a really smart move for San Francisco. Either that or the other one is I could see San Francisco going offensive line.
Yep.
The Shanahan system loves a good offensive line, and I do feel it let them down a little bit last year. Trent Williams is getting really old too, so yeah, either one. But I think plus 125 definitely good value play there.
All right. So Matt, what's your next best bet?
So instead of giving you my best bet here, I want to open up some discussion quickly here.
Okay.
Here's my biggest wild card of the NFL
Okay.
draft because I'd love to hear anybody else's opinion on this too. I need you to answer me some questions here, Zach, and I'm going with the number 3 pick here. Who holds the number 3 pick?
The New York Giants.
Do the New York Giants have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns on their team?
I believe so, yes.
How many edge rushers are typically on the field at once?
You got to go one each side.
So 2. If they draft Abdul Carter, how many really good edge rushers do they have at that point?
Can you really have too many good edge rushers?
I hear you. I do hear you. But at some point, you're very likely leaving one of those guys off the field. Most downs, one of those players is likely not on the field. I don't think it would be a good play for the Giants to draft Abdul Carter. I think he is a fantastic talent. Now, if they're going to do this, I think, do they trade Brian Burns? Do they trade Kayvon Thibodeau? I agree in having good edge rushers and some depth at the position, right? But I don't think having 3 stars at the position is overly smart. I think this 3rd overall pick is maybe the biggest wild card of the draft, at least the early picks here. I have no idea what the Giants are going to do here. I think every option is on the table. And the main reason here why I'm saying this is I don't think Brian Daboll has a lot of time here in New York. I actually went through, I was quite surprised by this. I think, Zach, you and I even talked about this maybe last week. I looked at Brian Daboll's coaching resume in the NFL as an offensive coordinator or head coach. I believe, and I don't have this stat right in front of me, but I'm calling off the top of my head here. I believe it was 7 or 8 of 11 seasons he has coached where his offense has finished, I believe it was 26th or worse in passing, in points. He has not had much success in this league. I think everybody, and I'm not saying Brian Dable is not a good coach. That's not my point here. Everybody got really high on Brian Daboll when we saw what he did with Josh Allen, right? And I guess what I'm saying here was Josh Allen the anomaly of his career, or is that who Brian Daboll is? The rest of his resume would suggest Allen is the anomaly. How good is Allen? What was he going to do this anyways? Regardless of his coach, we don't know those answers, unfortunately. But I don't think Dable has a lot of time here. He had a good first season in New York, and it's been bad since. This is going to be his 4th season coaching as the head coach in New York. They need a quarterback. I don't believe Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston is going to buy him any more time, nor do I think this is going to buy Joe Schoen, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly there, much more time either, because he has also become famous for all the wrong reasons. For his kid telling him that you need to draft Jaden Daniels. I don't care what it takes. What did he say? You only have one shot at this. You might as well go do it. Go get the best player.
Yeah.
They don't. And look, is that his fault? Not necessarily. Maybe moving up to get him was not an option, right? The Commanders might have not fielded those calls. But Jaden Daniels goes on. I would say, I know it was a little bit in doubt for a couple weeks there as Bo Nix got hot last year, but I think ran away with Offensive Rookie of the Year, took his team to the NFC Championship game. Malik Neighbor is great talent, but guess what? He needs a quarterback. He needs someone to deliver him the ball. The other reason is letting Saquon Barkley walk. You get nothing for him. He walked in free agency. You let him go. He wins a Super Bowl in his first season in division rival Philadelphia. So I don't think either one of these guys have a lot of time. And you know what buys you a little bit of time? A rookie quarterback. Building a rookie quarterback, showing some progress. And I think for that reason, I don't think the Giants can walk away from the first round without a quarterback. Now, does that happen at 3? Maybe not. Maybe they trade out, right? Maybe they get a great offer, and I think that would be a really smart move for the Giants to move down. But I sprinkled a little bit on 2 things here. Number 1, Shedeur Sanders to be the 3rd overall pick, plus 700. I think
Nice.
that's I think there's good value in that. Do I think that is the most likely option here? No, but I think it's much more likely than 7-1. The other one is Ashton Jeanty at 100-1. At this pick. We now know that we've always known the Raiders are going to be interested. And according to the Jaguars, they are also interested in Jeanty too. So you got teams at 6, at 5. The Patriots have previously said they want to bring in some fresh legs in their offense. So I think there's potential that even the Patriots could look at Jeanty.
Mike Vrabel gets his Henry.
You talk to the Giants. I don't know that the Giants are going to draft him, but I could see a team like, whether it be, Dallas could make this type of move. Maybe, as you said, Chicago could make this move up the board to go get Ashton Jeanty. So Jeanty at 100-1, I think, is a really interesting long shot play there.
That's a
3rd overall pick. That's my wild card of this draft.
That's a fun one. I will say with Abdul Carter, part of the reason why I still like him outside of just you can never have too many edge rushers. He did play off-ball linebacker, which I know everyone that wants to draft him, you want the edge rusher a little more valuable. But he did play that most of his college career, so that's an option to still have all 3 of those guys on the field. But man, yeah, I've seen Shedeur at 3. That's because I have seen potentially trade back Jackson Dart late to get that quarterback. Because I agree fully with you. They do not have time. That's why I fully think that's why they got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. Yeah, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. I don't think that buys you a ton of time, but it's at least, a veteran quarterback. Try to build this team this year to win, which, I don't think that's going to happen. they're not going to. But that's an absurd stat with Brian Daboll being an offensive-minded coach, getting like that's how he got it. He was offensive coordinator, 26th or worse.
It's bad.
Not
It's
great.
really bad. And a lot of those finishes too are like bottom three.
Yeah. So
So
that's a fun
let me hit
one.
you with one of my
I
other favorite bets right now, though, too. So
yeah.
there was my wild card. One of my other favorite bets right now. I mentioned to you earlier that I feel offensive linemen and edge rushers are going to fly off the board earlier than expected. For that reason, Colston Loveland is a guy who, yeah, he's a great player. Um, I don't see, I don't understand his draft position total as over under 17 and a half, where right now, just today, so I bet his over at 19 and a half a couple weeks ago. It's now 17 and a half with the over at plus 300. I'm betting it again because
Yeah.
I don't see it. Uh, I think it's a generally believed that Tyler Warren is going to be the top tight end taken in this draft. Um, and I just don't see enough teams here that are going to prioritize tight end, nor do I see a team that I think is going to make this type of move up the board, the Chargers, to get that high up to take Loveland. We know of the teams picking in the first 17 picks, I see two of them that could, you know what, I'll say I only see one of them. But apparently there's two. The first one, the main one is the Colts, right?
Hmm.
You know what? I should say there's three. There's three that are being discussed right now. I think the Colts are the most likely team to take a tight end. I think they're taking one
I
of,
agree.
and I think they're going to be Warren's landing spot. Whether they have to move up or if they can stay put and do so. A lot of people are saying the Jets. I don't see the Jets prioritizing this position. They've got one big hole in offensive line still. I think they need to fill. Their defense was bad last year. Bringing in a new defensive minded coach, I think he'll want to get his hands in there, start molding that defense to be what he wants it to be. At 7, I don't see it. You got the Bears at 10 that people are talking about as well. Ben Johnson wants his big tight end, his Laporta, right? I like Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet's a good tight end. I think he was very misused last year in a very crowded system where you had three big time wide receivers demanding targets. I think it would be. I don't think it would be a good use of their resources to take a tight end at 10 when we know, hey, one, they probably need a running back. DeAndre Swift. I mean, what happened? When Ben Johnson became the OC in Detroit, they got rid of DeAndre Swift. Here he is in Chicago. They might do the same thing, whether they trade him or whether he just plays that more third down back role. So Chicago could take a tight end, but realistically, again, I think Chicago needs to look to the trenches. I think they need another offensive lineman. I think they need to beef up their defensive line. I think that's where they go. So, in looking at two tight ends, once you get past the Colts at 14, Arizona's not taking a tight end. I don't think Atlanta's taking a tight end. I don't think Miami's taking a tight end, who's 13, a little before there. But all of these, I just don't see enough teams here, and I don't think the Chargers are going to make that much of an aggressive move up the board to take a tight end. So I think Loveland over 17 and a half plus 300 has a lot of value there.
We've talked about it. We see odds move a lot. We don't see draft position over unders move a whole lot. Like 2 points is kind of crazy. I didn't even realize it moved to 17 and a half because I know like Chargers at 22. He's just waiting.
That was
Harbaugh's
the
waiting to get
obvious
his
landing
guy.
spot, right? And
And
Denver was another good one before they got Ingram, right? And that's not to
right.
say they won't still take a tight end, but it's less of a priority, I think, in Denver at this point. But yeah, man, I don't see it. I don't see two teams in the first 17 picks taking tight ends.
I don't either. I agree fully with the Jets. I think they go either O line or more likely defense, like with Aaron Glenn. So I agree with you fully there. And I'm going to give you my last NFL draft best bet, another plus money one. And I talked earlier, I was like, I feel like the top four is pretty set. unless we see something crazy like a Shador or Ashton Jeanty at 3, some trade. I think that then there's a little variety we could see. And then you get to pick 8. And I think this is the most locked in pick outside the top 4. I've been mocking him here. I feel like a lot of people have. And I'm going Jalen Walker to be the 8th pick. I think the only way this pick loses is if they trade out of it, which I guess they could do. But Jalen Walker, the Panthers need so much help on defense. They've had the 32nd rated rush defense back-to-back seasons. They need someone there to help out, and that's where Jalen Walker comes in. Everything I've heard, it seems like the Panthers brass just absolutely loves him off the field, loves him on the field. He plays all over the field. He can be an edge rusher. He can be that off-ball linebacker. Carolina needs so much help. They love him. Plus 130, Jalen Walker to be pick number 8. I love that.
Yeah, from the moment those odds opened to be the 8th overall pick, it's been Jalen Walker the whole time. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. He kind of gives you that hybrid defender, right? Play him everywhere. He's kind of your Swiss Army knife. Yeah, and Carolina needs it.
Bad. All right, so
So
Matt, before we wrap up, last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many
let me
you
rattle
got.
off a couple quick ones for you here. I won't keep you too much longer. You can find all of my bets on this NFL draft at in my mock draft. As Zach said, every year I attempt to put this million piece puzzle together, following the odds, abiding by the odds, placing players where the sports books say they will go, following all the rules, and trying to satisfy as many of the what I call the more credible markets. And it really gives you a good picture of which one of these markets just doesn't really make a lot of sense. What something stands out here as being like really difficult to make it work, right? Anytime I've got to facilitate a trade, I'm thinking, hey, this is tough, right? Maybe there's some value in making this bet. So, couple more for you here, and again, I typically stick to plus money bets here. Around the NFL draft, as we talked about early, you don't know anything, and anything I don't know that there's really much that is better than 50% probability of happening here. So I typically stick to the plus money, and I've got a couple more. Marion Hampton. Every sports book has had his over-under set at 19.5, with the over heavily favored. Minus 300. I've seen minus 400 in on certain days. FanDuel just opened him up yesterday. 20.5, with the over at plus 188. So if you follow the two sports books, or sorry, every sports book out there that has odds here, basically they're walling him into pick number 20, which I've got 2 picks from this one issue here. So they're basically saying the Broncos are taking him at 20, which sure, Broncos need a running back, yes. This might be one of the deeper running back classes we've seen in quite some time. There is Jeanty, there's Hampton that sure, maybe they stand out a little bit above the rest. I don't know that running back is going to be a position anybody prioritizes due to the depth, right? Hey, if I miss on Hampton, fine. I'll take Judkins. I'll take, whoever else is going to fall to me in the second round. Travion Henderson, whoever, right? So I like this over at plus 188. Every other sportsbook is certain he's going after 19. So what's one more pick? I think he slides by the Broncos. And so there's my plus 188. And the second pick here is I actually think the Broncos are a team that takes a wide receiver in the first round. I think Sean Payton is very happy with figuring out the running back position later on. When was Alvin Kamara drafted? Late in the draft, right? He is very good at finding these guys that fit his system, and waiting, taking positions that matter more to his offense, that are not a dime a dozen like the running back position can be, right? So I actually think the Broncos take a wide receiver. You got to have somebody opposite Courtland Sutton. I don't think, we heard a lot of really positive stories about the young receiving core in Denver last year. They really let them down against Buffalo, right? In the playoffs there. Now, don't get me wrong, if they catch all those balls, I still don't know that Denver wins that game. But they dropped a ton of balls. And we saw that all throughout the season, too. There were just, rookie mistakes. Now, were they just rookie mistakes, or are those players just, you know, who they are? Is this the way they're going to be? I don't think Sean Payton wants to go into year 2 with Bo Nix without a good number 2 receiver. We've already seen them prioritize tight end. They brought in Evan Engram, as I said earlier. I think they are going to target a wide receiver. You can get that at plus 400 right now, which I think is a great value play. They're minus 125 or so to take a running back, and I just think Peyton's going to wait. I think he's going to wait, do that, address that position a little bit later in the draft. My last one for you here, position totals. So there are a few positions where sports books they've set the numbers a little bit low, and they're saying the over is very likely. Quarterback, wide receiver, safety, offensive line is another one where it's about 6.5. I don't think in trying to piece together all of these different pieces of what the sports books are saying in the credible markets, I don't think you can I think it's really difficult to satisfy all of these overs of specifically looking at safety, wide receiver, quarterback. Now, quarterback, I think teams are going to prioritize quarterback, especially in this draft where there's not a lot of depth. I think there's 3 guys that do stand out above the rest, maybe even 4 if you throw Milroe in there. But I do think there's enough desperate teams for quarterbacks that one makes sense. I could see that one being satisfied. Wide receiver, we've talked about this, maybe that slides. Safety, I don't see it. I right now like plus 300 odds for there to be under 1.5 safeties taken in the first round. Malachi Starks, Nick Emenwari are the 2 guys that they're saying will go. Yet, both of their over-unders are 23.5 with the overs heavily juiced up. So you start looking at who's picking after 23. You've got the Vikings who might take a safety in there. Maybe the Bills, maybe the Commanders. But again, all of these teams have other needs that I think will be available for them to address. I think safety slides plus 300 for either Emenwari or Starks or both not to be taken in the first round. I think is great value. So there are what did I give you there? 7 bets there of my 20 plus that I have on the NFL draft so far.
And then you'll just add a few more after this, I'm sure.
That's right. I'm going to go check out the odds again. What changed between the time I hopped on here and now, and we'll see.
Like it. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm going to take your word as all the Broncos stuff is behind you, that you know what you're talking about there. So I like the plus money.
I don't know if anybody knows what
That's
they're talking
the way to do it.
NFL draft time, but we'll see.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining. Hope everyone liked the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on social media, and stay up to date with all your sports betting needs at sportsbettingdime.com. Happy draft week.
Happy drafting, everybody.